Uh,
Oh, oh,
we're live. Oh no, wait,
we're live.
what?
I was just gonna ask, how long are we live for?
Like until 10, basically.
Nice, I love it.
Okay, perfect. Hi, Morris. Welcome to Venture with Grace.
Oh, good to be here. How are you?
I'm good. I'm also trying to not die. But anyway, okay, to start the show, I would love for the audience to get to know you a little bit more. So you began your career, you're actually multiple time entrepreneur. So like you began your career as a software engineer at Kanjoya, and then eventually you become the chief data scientist. And then later on, you founded Motive Software, which was acquired by BetterUp, and now you recently just launched like Bigspin AI. And what were some like core lessons that you've learned early on in your career, kind of shape you into who you are today?
Hmm. I love that question. So when I think back on my previous startups and the experiences that I've had, and to what extent they feel like they're actually, helping me now. Um, I feel like the biggest things that I've tried to carry with me, or that I feel like I've learned, are one is you just have to follow the things that you're passionate about. So I've been in the position where I had a great product, and it was a really good business model, and I just didn't. It was just a direction that didn't personally light me up,
Yeah.
and it's impossible. So you can't have great product, great business, but don't have the passion for it, because ultimately this is just it's an insane marathon, and what the motivation has to be intrinsic, in my opinion, for me. It has to come from me wanting to bring something to the world or bring some change to the world, and the business model is just the way that makes that sustainable. The second thing that I feel like I'm trying to be more in touch with is just being like trusting my gut more. I think early on, in my first couple of startups or first jobs, I spent a lot of time trying to think about things really rationally. And trying to really think about what's the evidence I'm gathering, what's the data I'm gathering, like, let me be strategic, let me take a step back. And all of those rituals are really important in forcing yourself to think like that and to slow down. But I think I've just gotten more comfortable with trusting my gut, because you get so many signals that are kind of amorphous and vague, and you're in a highly uncertain world, and you're trying to navigate. You can't really see much more than a mile ahead of you. And I think that there's a ton of pattern recognition that I've developed that I'm not even conscious of. And I think all of us in different parts of our lives, like wherever you have lived experience, you have pattern recognition that you don't even fully appreciate, but you start to notice little things and you're like, oh, that reminds me of that, or that feels like a shape of something that I recognize that's starting to emerge. And I just try to trust that more, and yeah, it's a follow my heart. That's such a Disney movie lesson. Follow my heart. That's what I'm trying to do.
Wait, I feel like such a good lesson, but I feel like trusting your gut is like because of you have been like I guess like generally successful multiple times from like creating your past companies. So I think it's like really like give you the confidence to like trust yourself. And I feel like it's a especially great lesson for people who are like a little bit early on in their kind of like entrepreneurial journey. Speaking of that, so you have known your co-founder for over 15 years. You have worked with him for over 15 years. Maybe we could talk about like, how do you guys meet? And then like, how do you kind of like, how does a relationship kind of evolve into like, working and like co-founding companies?
Yeah, if you guys don't know my co-founder, his name is Chris Potts. He's by night now a linguistics and computer science professor at Stanford, and by day he's our chief scientist and head of all things AI at Bigspin. And Chris is just such an amazing person. But actually, I first met him 15 years ago. I was a student, and he was a professor, and I had just discovered that the field of NLP and AI existed. And I was immediately like this is what I want to do. This is the coolest stuff ever. And, a brash young student who doesn't really know anything, but is full of energy. And Chris's door was the one that I knocked on, just to be like, hey, I want to work on this stuff, but I don't really know where to start. And he just kind of was a mentor to me early on, and kind of provided my introduction into the world of AI and NLP. And now 15 years later, over the past 15 years, we've had so many adventures together, whether it was in research or he was an advisor at my previous companies, or, we do little things here and there. And there's Chris. Look at him. And I remember, though that's a big picture of me. I remember like early on when I first started doing research with Chris when I was still a master's student, the thing that like obviously he's a brilliant guy. Like, I mean, he's a luminary in the space of AI. But what's always drawn me to him and drawn me to want to work with him is just what it feels like to work with him. I think that's such an important thing of early startup is like, you got to really like the people you work with and you got to feel like they make you better. And they bring out the better side of you. And I remember like early 15 years ago, just starting to research with Chris, he always started every email with my name and then an exclamation point. And like, it's like little things like that, but that always gave me like a sense of like, oh, he's so excited to work with me. And he's so excited to like, give me this feedback on the paper that I've been writing. And he's just the kind of guy that just like encourages creativity, encourages people to find their voice, and also just has like an extremely high bar for quality. And I find those things very motivating and very satisfying to work with. And so we've just kind of continued to work over the last 15 years. And then about a year ago, we kind of always are working on side projects. And a year ago, we just kind of got so frustrated with the state of AI, where you have these fantastically capable and intelligent models that far outpace anything that either of us had ever expected would be kind of on this time horizon in terms of what models are capable of. And you have all these people now building on top of these new language models, like people who had, for us being 15 years in NLP, it's like, wow, this is the moment. You have, millions of people now who had never heard of natural language processing who are now building on top of LLMs and building products that are only possible because of LLMs. And yet, it's like so much slop out there. And there's so many like boring, uncreative, like, oh, I'm just going to hook up a RAG system and deploy. Now I have a customer support chatbot. And like for all the hype and all the energy and enthusiasm and excitement and funding and number of people working in this space, the number of like really good life-changing products that are coming out of that is pretty small. And we think that has absolutely nothing to do with the models. The models, it's not like, oh, we're all waiting for GPT-6. If only GPT-6 could come out, it would solve all these problems. No, the models are already far more capable than we need them to be for 99% of the things we need to do. It's also not a bottleneck of technical, it's not that we don't have the infrastructures where we can run them securely. It's not that we can't hook them up to data. It's not that we can't hook them up to tools. The gap that everybody is facing is, how do I actually tell this thing what I need it to do? And it's the definition of, it's the product design, it's the behavior design. It's just how does this thing need to behave? What expertise does it need to exercise? What brand voice does it need to have? How do we craft this into an experience that is truly like solves the user's problem rather than just as a chat or just some sort of fancy little AI thing? And in our experience, so Chris's lab has done lots and lots of work on how do you program and optimize applications on top of foundation models. So he kind of brings all that technical rigor. I brought more of the product development side of leading teams that are building AI products and kind of understanding what needs to happen there. But the insight that both of us have through kind of our, him, the hardcore research technology world, me more in product development and building SaaS applications, the core common insight is the key unlock for AI quality and better AI products is not better technology. It's getting better feedback in. It's getting more people involved, the non-technical domain experts from your team. It's getting feedback from your users, and it's treating your AI as a continuously learning living loop rather than kind of this traditional software development mode of like, all right, I created something and I shipped it and let's see what happens.
I love that, which is like what Bigspin do. Maybe we could talk about, first of all, I didn't know the term was actually from skateboarding.
Yeah, Chris is a skateboarder.
Yeah, I can't tell. I feel like you are more of like a
I
skateboarder.
know. Well, I have the hair. So we actually did a little photo shoot yesterday we're refreshing some brand stuff, and so of course I had to get on the skateboard, and so I'm becoming a skateboarder now. I'm becoming one, but yeah, Chris continues to be my mentor in that respect.
I love that. I wonder, so like that's basically what Bigspin does, which is like collecting feedback from like all these experts and different things to, advance the model. Maybe we could, or not the model, but like the AI product themselves. Maybe we could talk about like, did you kind of like find out about the problem generally from while working at BetterUp, or like what were like kind of the original inspiration for the product itself? Obviously, you said a lot of these like on a high level, like a lot of the trend is like we have very advanced model, but like no one is, it's like the differentiation is coming from like training it and then giving it feedback and then asking like the AI itself to kind of like becoming more curated and to give it like more context or like memories. And then I guess like maybe we could talk about Bigspin in general, like, how does it work? And obviously you did an amazing demo at our conference, which involves like 4-time custom change. Maybe we could talk about like, you give the example of like being at a hospital, like what does it mean? Like, for different department, like what are kind of things that they need to do. But I guess like maybe if you could give the audience a little bit like overview on the product, and then maybe we can go from there.
Yeah, I'll start with just like a human analogy to build on that, to build on the whole model intelligence isn't the limiting factor theme, which is, so imagine you're hiring somebody and you hire the smartest person in the world and just like an absolute genius, and they also have all the memory in the world. They can literally have a photographic memory and they're never going to forget anything, and they have access to like some crazy set of tools that and they know exactly how to use them. So there's like some sort of superhuman that maybe you hire them as an employee, maybe you like have them show up at a cocktail hour because you want them to like interview everybody and find out key information, or you want them to help manage connections, or maybe you have them show up to some job site and you want to put them to work. Like you take the smartest person in the world and you just have them show up. That's kind of what a lot of people are doing with AI right now. They're just like, all right, I'm going to get an API access to the smartest model in the world, and I'm going to integrate it into our product stack, and I'm going to like just go do stuff. Hiring the smartest person in the world and just having them like go sit at a desk at your office and telling them like, all right, now go produce value. They are going to try their hardest to produce value. And they're really, really smart. So they're probably like write a bunch of stuff and produce a bunch of stuff. And you'll look at what they're doing like, wow, that person's really productive. They've written so much code, or they've written so many PRDs, but like, how do they know what to do? How do they know how your business does it? How do they know that, like, oh, we have these processes where first we involve the creative director in this way. And then, oh, but we have these policies for this kind of customer and this kind of return, we need to do it in this way. And, oh, because it's a pet care company, we always need to have this certain kind of brand voice and be aware of signals that our customers are going through emotional events because of maybe the loss of a pet. And there's all this new, like, as soon as you really get in any business, any employee, like there's always onboarding. There's always like, here's how we do things, or here's our strategy, or here's what's important to us, or here's, what to keep in mind for different things. And like, I think a lot of where the gaps are right now is we're taking these really smart models or these really smart people and like plugging them somewhere and then being like, all right, now go do great stuff. And we kind of watch them. And it's like what they do isn't feel all that great. But like, we shouldn't be surprised, because no matter how smart some model is or some person, they can't predict, they can't guess, they're not going to like mind read to know what good means for you. And I think that's the key thing for all these AI applications, is that what good means for business A, for hospital A, in region B, is different than what good means for hospital, X in region Y. Like a lot of the core things will be the same, core medical expertise will be the same, but they'll have totally different policies. They'll have different insurance regulations from being in different states. They'll have a different, specialties and ways of doing things. And the models aren't just going to magically understand those things. They're not just going to magically know what you, Grace, want out of your AI assistant. Those are things that need to be discovered. They need to be learned. They need to be encoded and articulated in a way that the AI can understand and act on them. And so a fundamental part of the problem for AI systems is we're just not getting the right set of requirements. We tell the AI, be a customer support agent. That's the job title, right? What about all the job responsibilities, all the key things it needs to do? And then for all those key job responsibilities, for workflows it needs to do, there's even more specialized instructions. And so one way to think about Bigspin and one way to think about the product that we've built is we just provide a bridge between your existing AI system and the people who are not building it, but the people who know what it should do, the people who know what good looks like. So that's both your users, who ultimately you need to satisfy and you need to solve their problems, or there's some purpose for which you're using the AI on their behalf. And then there's the internal domain experts, like your insurance specialist, your brand voice specialist, like people who have like really specialized business and product knowledge and kind of like domain expertise knowledge that your AI needs to somehow know, or that informs what is important about it. So I think of Bigspin in really simple terms as just bridging, like there are already people who know what your AI needs to do, and there's already an AI system, an AI model that's capable of learning those things. All you need to do is bridge it. All you need to do is start to take those signals that you're learning from your users or your internal non-technical subject matter experts and just start feeding them to your AI and start letting it learn and evolve its own spec. And kind of on a very simple, very basic level, that's what Bigspin does. And I can show you an example, I guess. This is screen sharing, right?
Yeah. So present or invite on the bottom.
Okay, 1 second. Let me try to share screen. Here we go.
Okay, let me just present.
So I'll give you one example. Yeah. So this is not our app. This is a demo app. So imagine that this is like one of our end users' downstream AI products. So you have some sort of, like, in this case, I'm imagining like what do you think about Matt Hensley? In this case, I'm just kind of imagining, like, let's imagine that you have a skateboarding shop or some sort of skateboarding brand. I love skateboarding now. And they're building an AI product, and they want this AI assistant to like really, they're like, oh, this AI is going to be great at engaging with our users and like helping upsell them on some of our products and some of our workshops. And like, here, it wants to sell me a pro deck now to boost my setup. Just need a new trick. I didn't land the Bigspin last time. I think I just need something more challenging. So this is obviously a skateboarding chat. This is a little bit of a fake demo, but you can imagine this kind of thing translates actually very well to doctors' offices where you need patient assistance, or you are kind of asking for exercises after a rehab. This also translates really well to any scenario where you're doing kind of customer support or any of these sort of bot things. So in this case, let's just say I have this app, we launched it, we were really excited, but like what typically happens with AI products is they're just kind of meh. It's like, all right, it kind of works, right? You can see this is a chat, there's an AI, it's talking to me, but like, is this a good experience? Like, is this both a good experience for the user, and is this actually serving the business goals that we as the skateboarding company have? And the answer to that question isn't, oh, I need to give it access to more data, or it needs some tools that I didn't have. The answer to that question is just how it's choosing to respond is not like, it's kind of like the way GPT would respond. It's just not that interesting. And it's not speaking in our brand voice. It's not taking into account our very specific things. All it's doing is trying to be like, oh, I know I'm supposed to upsell you on products, so let me try to include that in every message. I just wanted to show you that to then switch into Bigspin. So this is now my let me go to the Learn tab. This is now my development space. So you have your AI app and it's running and it's serving your users. And because you're connected to Bigspin, because you're doing behavior shaping and feedback shaping in Bigspin, what happens is all of those examples, all of those user chats and the user feedback coming from those chats is they're not just feedback that's being logged, it's actually turning into learning signal. So everything here that I've let me just summarize what have I learned from feedback. So I have my AI assistant here that's going to help me make sense of what we're even learning from the data and the signal that we have. Very clear that it's over recommending product recommendations. That's very clear in the data that it's seeing. And what I can do is I can invite my team in. They can also look at preview environments and they can add comments of great history. We always want to connect to the Cali history, but way too long, and make sure to say right on. Maybe I'm the brand voice person. And every piece of feedback, every example from your AI, every thumbs up or thumbs down from one of your teammates or from one of your users, that turns into a learning signal in Bigspin, and allows us to then optimize your system based on everything that we've learned. I'm just going to trigger the massive optimization here. That's just going to take everything into account. Find all the hidden signals and latent requirements in our examples data and the feedback that we've gathered, in the signals that we've looked at. We've got my cool skateboarder here who's now doing the hard job of taking everything that we've learned here. This boiled down actually in pretty small. That's nice. Taking everything that we've learned here and figuring out what was wrong about the spec that we gave the AI. This is the prompt that we're currently using. It's relatively short, only 100 lines. But you can see what it's done here is it's identified, there was a requirement we were missing in safety and risk. Don't recommend tricks or activities that are significantly beyond the user's stated skill level. That's a compliance risk. That's a legal risk. Here it's found 3 requirements under promotion and offers to give it a little bit more instruction about when is the right time to offer a promotion. How do you know the user is ready for it? And so you can see that was just one learning loop that we're doing here. I'm going to go ahead and accept all of these. That was just one learning loop that we've done based on, in this case, actually a very small set of data, just 14 examples. But teams that are building AI with Bigspin, what they're able to do is just as people are using their AI, as feedback is flowing in, whether it's explicit or implicit in I'm frustrated as a user, every one of those is just a learning signal in Bigspin where you can then close the loop, deploy a new prompt, see the AI improve, and move forward. And that's kind of how we build this bridge. Your AI system running for your users, and then a view of it that your non-technical teammates, your PMs, et cetera, can see the signals, analyze them, add more feedback, and then trigger learning cycles.
I have a question on this. So basically from the memory perspective, there's so many thoughts. So one is if I input some sort of feedback, and then what if the contact change, and then I ask the thing to do something completely different, how do you override the past feedback versus the newer feedback? Or maybe I'm in the marketing department, you're in the compliance department, you're hey, never say blah blah blah, and then the marketing department was oh, we need to be more edgy, and let's say right on or something. So how do you kind of do the hierarchy of the entire product deployment through chats or something?
What you bring up about conflicting signals happens all the time. Because and that's the thing that's really important about AI is there is infinite surface area in terms of the product you're building, right? It's not there is no predefined set of flows or things a user can do. This is not traditional software. This is anything they type, any nuances, different contextual data that you're feeding in, little changes in those, right? There's infinite surface area of what a user could do and how the AI system might end up responding. Mm-hmm. And As a result of that, you just need to gather a lot more requirements. Like there's a lot more surface area that you need to have a sense of, yes, this is good, this is bad, it should do this, it shouldn't do that. And for that reason, also, you just need to get a lot more people involved. And often when you do that, there's expertise that pulls in different directions. So, you might have your product counsel come in, or your compliance person, and they're like, hey, every time it recommends a skateboarding trick, it needs to say, I am not a doctor and don't treat this as an actual recommendation to do this trick. And the product manager would come in and say, no, every time it should never say that. Like, that ruins the mood. Like, maybe, it should always just that brings the user down. It should just, not say unsafe stuff. And the marketing person might say it needs to be way shorter. And then somebody else is like, but it needs to include more detail. So it's actually rare that the signals are literally like, it should do A and somebody else says it shouldn't do A. It's that two people from different functions say it should do A and it should do B. And it's just that to do each of those things is kind of tugging in different directions. And that's actually crucial to surface. And when you're just working in isolation as an AI developer and you're just writing a prompt yourself, or you ask Claude to write a prompt or something, and it's like, it looks fine. You're not getting any of those signals. And so the GPT is just going to do whatever the GPT prior is for that behavior. And the really important thing is, like, the product that you're trying to build needs to be like what's going to make it really successful, and what's going to make it differentiated, and what's going to make it uniquely like yours and from your business, is that you have all these different people with all this different kind of perspective and expertise that are coming together to help shape the direction. And so we see our job at Bigspin not in making those decisions for you, but surfacing what decisions need to be made. So we'll analyze all your data and we'll say, it looks like users really like shorter responses, but we got a lot of feedback from your marketing or your compliance person that that messages should be longer or should include, all this information, which means they're going to end up being longer. We surface that and we say, hey, we've noticed this, and we've noticed this pattern that, users seem to want this, or we got this feedback. There's a conflicting thing, product owner, which of these would you choose, or how would you like to resolve this? So we don't presume to know, because again, there's so many infinite surface area, infinite decisions. We don't know what's going to be right for your business. We don't know what's going to be right for what the product that you're building or the risk tolerance that you have. But we do know that this is an important decision. And making it one way or another is really going to impact how your AI behaves. And so we think of our job as surfacing the decisions that need to be made, and then helping you evaluate to what extent, all right, I made a decision. To what extent is my AI honoring that decision? And so that's where we're all about. How do we make the AI behave in a way that's aligned with how you want it to behave, and giving you the tools to define that. Without assuming that we or that Bigspin will know what's right when it sees these differences in signal.
I wonder, does it look like a governance sheet or something? So there's a menu override a decision to who, or how does it kind of look like from the back end?
Yeah, we track everything in terms of ultimately there underneath every AI system that we host or that we provide instrumentation and feedback learning loops for. There's a set of requirements. These are quite granular. And that set of requirements is kind of a living set that we continue to evolve as we learn things or as users say things. And that's the set of requirements that's then used to optimize prompts or to evaluate prompts, or to see hey, are we learning new things? Is this signal a requirement that we haven't seen yet, or something new, or do we need to adapt a requirement? And so we let the users, so there's one kind of primary owner of the AI system in the Bigspin product. That's usually the product owner making those decisions. And they're ultimately the ones who decide which requirements to use for optimization, which ones to use for evaluation, and which ones to kind of just use for monitoring. And so I think the the thing that's really important here is that we really want to create an environment where more and more people are in the loop of AI development. And I think a really important thing to make that really productive is to have those people that you're trying to involve in the expertise or the sign-off that you need to get, to have those people actually react to real examples of AI behavior, or just preview it themselves and then give feedback there. That is a way, way, way more productive and efficient way to actually validate requirements than if you ask them to look at your prompt or if you ask them to look at some set of requirements that you've identified. Because requirements are always in an AI, Gen AI applications, just looking at a requirement never actually shows you what is not an efficient way of eliciting what actually matters to you as a user or as a subject matter expert. So I think it's a really great example of this is like when we go to restaurants. So you can kind of tell from a menu item whether you're going to like it or what it's going to be like. You can kind of, you see the keywords and you're like, oh, creme fraiche, I like creme fraiche. But then it's when you see it, when the dish comes out, that's when you're like, oh, I ordered right, or oh, that's not what I expected. And then when you taste it, you immediately know, too salty. Oh, that's not, that arugula is so bitter. I love it. And so like we as humans, we're really, really great at reacting to things and discriminating, like, and in the sense of like, oh, I like that. I like, once it's in your mouth, you can kind of, you can differentiate between things and you can tell like, do I like it or not? Which is actually a very like personal and nuanced thing. That's really hard to do if you're just looking at the menu. You have to kind of really have some pattern recognition of like, yeah, I always like creme fraiche, and I understand, I kind of know what this restaurant will do. And it's really similar with AI, where if you're trying to, and we talk about guardrails, when you're trying to get other people to help you understand what needs to be better about your AI, or whether your AI is good enough, just showing them the menu they're gonna be like, yeah, it looks fine, I guess, or like, why are you using that ingredient? You should be using sour cream instead. It's the feedback won't be the same level of actionability, and it won't be the same level of like it won't be as authentic. Whereas if you bring them a dish, you let them taste a dish, the feedback will be immediate, and it will be really like, straight from the heart. And it will be based off of like that real experience and the real expertise. And so a lot of what we do at Bigspin is trying to make that easier, that kind of signal easier to mine, and then more actionable to use.
I have a question on that. Like, so when it's like, how many memory do I need to have, or like how much context do I need to give the feedback? And then like, how do you kind of like my thought on like, for example, like ChatGPT or like Cloud, like whenever you type in too many questions, they'd be like, hey, can you start a new chat because this is like too much for us to like process, because you asked for like, revision 35 and like which happened to me all the time. So, and then they're like, can you just start a new thread because this is too much?
Yeah.
Does this happen at Bigspin? Like, what is like the I guess technical challenges?
So I think what you're bringing up there is a really good example of like the so like that's a personal use case. Yeah, everybody, your ChatGPT or Claude thread and it's gotten super long. It's such a good example. Thank you for bringing that up. It's such a good example of like when you're working with AI, you don't get it right the first time. And like you think you've described everything. Like, yeah, I want you to turn this into an email that does this and does this. And it does a decent job the first time. It's like, yeah, that's an email. It's like, it didn't do it wrong. But you see the email and immediately you realize like, oh, I wouldn't talk like that. Or I don't use exclamation points like that. Or, oh, I forgot to mention, like, we should say this, or I'm worried about them thinking that. How do we? And then you start to get in this thread, and it's like, it's iterative, right? And anytime you work with AI, it's because it's the first time you try to express what you want, and you do. But like, there's gaps in that the AI is going to try to guess how to fill in those gaps, and it's going to use its priors. And it's through iteration and through revision that you really start to hone in on what good means. And the crucial thing is you probably couldn't have written all that ahead of time. You needed to see actual outputs of like, oh, that's wrong, or like, yeah, that's starting to be right. And so Bigspin, think about it as a very similar motion, except rather than like accumulating a massive context window, because you're doing that again and again, it's that when you're building an AI product, when you're crafting a prompt to begin with, you are able to take in all that feedback and use all those learning signals to optimize the core prompt. And then now imagine you open your Claude thread, and instead of, just the Claude system prompt, it's like the Claude system prompt plus the prompt around how to write the best emails for Grace Gong, and to live up to her incredible standards for and taste for email sending. And so we're the great thing about the models too, just from a context perspective, is they can take a lot of context, and they've gotten really, really good at not getting as confused about like, oh, I've got a long context window. Where do I attend? Where do I not attend to? So like they'll continue to get better at that. So in general, we really recommend that you don't shy away from having really long prompts and really long context windows. Like if your AI isn't doing well, it's probably not that your context window is too long. It's that you're not including the right stuff. You're not including the right instructions for how to use the context you've provided, or you're not including the right context. And so what we do at Bigspin is we help you from context engineering, figure out, well, what context do you need to include in any new, like you don't need that whole chat, right? You don't need all of your previous email drafts. You just kind of probably need the core feedback that was discovered along the way. So we help users figure out how do they, do more intelligent context management, like while the AI system is running. And then we help them use all the signals from, all the different parts where it was used to figure out, well, how do you need to include the right instructions in the core prompt for how to use that context? And generally, you need to be smart. Context windows, you can have a lot of information and that can blow it up. And so you want to be, you want to have your little components that are going to compress and help manage context as it grows. But in general, we really, really encourage our users to prompts can be very long. And in fact, they should be very long. If you look at the system prompts that GPT uses, that Claude uses, or just the portions of them that they publish or that have been leaked, they're very long. And so you should not try to minimize content. You shouldn't try to use as little context as possible. Lean into it. Lean into the context window. Try to shove as much into there as possible. And it's just about providing the right instructions for how to use the context. That's where people often get hung up.
What's the difference between I talk to a machine versus I talk to myself? I prompt the stuff. So I typically, when I talk to Cloud, it's I just pretend Cloud is a human and I gave all the unnecessary stuff. But it actually does somewhat improve the contact, the feedback. But what's the difference between if someone just talking to an agent versus you're talking to a human?
So this was previous job, I was building AI coaching products at BetterUp. And I'm just going to do a quick tangent here because I think it's really interesting. We're building an AI coach where, it's usually something, it's traditionally something humans do. And you still have humans doing it. There's still a really, really important role for them. But we're sort of thinking, all right, great. You now have an LLM that can kind of do a lot of this important kind of coaching-like work. And you're going to have users interacting. We can it's 1/1,000,000th the cost. And so we can really scale, we can really bring a positive change to so many more people than we could just with human coaching. And so we're building these AI coaches and we're trying to understand how do people even think about AI? How do they think about the AI coach? And do we want to give it a name, some sort of human name, or do you want to, and so we actually did a ton of research on not just how people think about AI, which is also changing a lot. And actually people are anthropomorphizing AI more and more now than they were. But we also did research on how, if you kind of put people in a different mind frame for what AI is, if you kind of nudge them or to think about it in a different way, how does that influence how they actually interact with the product? And so we ran this experiment where took the exact same AI coaching product. We didn't change a single thing about the product. It was the exact same product, the exact same AI. But for one group of users, we told them we told them about how human-like it was. We really anthropomorphized it. We're yeah, this thing has lots of empathy and, it can talk to you just like a person. And we really emphasized just how human-like it was. In the other condition, when for the intro screen, we really emphasized how non-human it was, like all of the distinct AI strengths. So we were like, this thing is non-judgmental. It literally cannot judge you. And it's never going to run out of patience because it doesn't even know what patience is. It's just a machine, and it's always on. So you can talk to it as much as you want in the middle of the night. And it has access to infinite data. Like it has access to all the data on the internet and all the perspectives on the internet. So we'd like one really emphasizing how the qualities that are human-like, and the other emphasizing the qualities that are non-human-like. The differences were stunning in how people engage with the product. Long story short, it was way more successful to frame it as a non-human thought partner. So for this use case, framing the AI as like distinctly non-human, it didn't just lead to people saying they liked it more. They actually used the product differently. They told it more things. They spent longer with it. They went deeper with it. And then afterwards, on all of these like validated measures of kind of self-reported measures of growth, they like grew more out from those conversations. So they had more like the better like actual business outcome or like product outcome of actually having, not just engagement with the product, but actually like having some moment of growth or insight. And like way off the charts, statistically significantly better outcomes, and exact same product. And it was just about what frame you put people in. And I think to kind of bring this back to your original question, I think like there's obviously so many human-like qualities to AI because it's natural language and they're trained on all of human language. And so there's all these things that are going to be really similar in terms of that feeling. But I encourage everybody, when you're either building AI products or just using Claude yourself, to remember that it's a machine, and because the actual benefit of that can be really, really big. Because if it's, for example, how I use Claude, when I'm just, in some sort of chat thread, and maybe I'm like working on like, what's the right email to send, or what's the, help me think through this question that I have or something. Since I know it's a machine, and since I really lean into like, this thing is non-judgmental, I don't worry about how I come off. I don't worry about complete sentences. I don't worry about like, I need this thing to think I'm smart and I've really thought this through. I don't worry about like, bearing my insecurities or being like, I'm afraid of this, or I'm wondering, like, there's just no part of myself that's doing that self-filtering and the like that self thing of like, oh, is somebody like, how would somebody view this, or what would somebody think if they heard this? And obviously that just makes it easier because it's like, there's no cognitive load. But the really important thing here is that actually gets better AI outcomes, because in language, in how we talk, when I just express myself and I'm not trying to filter things and I'm talking in incomplete thoughts and in phrases and I'm using punctuation weirdly, every one of those like choices that I'm making subconsciously is indicating something about what I want and what my state is. Right? There's all these cues in there, and in just the raw stuff I'm typing about, like, what are my values? What am I afraid of? What do I really want to optimize? What's my emotional state? And all of those things are things that the language model will, kind of like it will influence how it behaves. And there's signals in there that if I just typed in as if I were using a search engine, like create email business purpose, and like I tried to just like tell it what to do, all of those raw signals from me wouldn't be encoded in the language, and it would just it's going to just give me a generic GPT thing. But the more just like yourself you are, and the less you worry about what you're saying, the more kind of raw signal it has to work with. And its LLMs are fantastic at interpreting those things. And so I think that's just like one example of like, don't think of it as your friend. Don't think of it as a silicon version of a human. Think of it as something that can provide a lot of similar things. But when, kind of leaning into the things that make it distinctly AI will actually make it easier to use and improve your own outcomes with it.
For sure. I want a quick shout out to David and Bree for commenting. And I want to ask, like, I guess like another question is, you give the idea of like hospital was like something that like that's the like first like use case that you kind of like demo at our conference. And like, what about like, the go-to-market strategy for Bigspin? Like, is there a particular area that you feel like will be like a power user, or like do you, I mean, obviously it could be used in like, marketing or like other stuff, but like, how do you think about go to market in general? Like, do you think about like the smaller company first or like the bigger company first because they have like higher budget, or how do you think about the go to market in general?
It's super high level. It's a two-stage process, and we're right now in stage one, kind of maybe the second half or nearing the end of stage one. Stage one is all about building the core product, validating it, and kind of proving the core loops, and the kind of business outcomes like the AI quality improvements that come when you're using it. And
Mhm.
for that phase, we focus pretty exclusively on AI native startups. So we really focus on Series A to D, and usually on the earlier end of that, startups in high expertise industries. So healthcare is a great example, where you have multiple stakeholders. You often have compliance and governance, but then you also have like policy, and then you have your domain experts like doctors, and then you have insurance specialists. Like there's a bunch of different the village thing. There's a bunch of different people who have a different piece of the puzzle. And if you have an AI system that's gonna, help your patients through their cancer treatment journey, like boy, it better be good at all those things, right? It can't just be good at insurance or just be good at bedside manner. It's gonna need to have all those things. So that's really where we think like the really important work is happening, is when there's no single answer, a single person that knows all the answers, and you need to build an AI that's operating in a high expertise and also a high trust industry, like high user trust. And so we focused on startups in that space to prove out the core product, because startups are more on the cutting edge of AI systems, and I think they represent what AI systems of tomorrow will increasingly look like. But that we haven't been trying to make any money off that, to be frank. Like we charge a little bit, but that's more of just to prove to everybody that it matters, and get some skin in the game. But we're just focusing on startups right now to prove the value and kind of get the product in the shape where it can do all these things. Also, we're about to get our SOC 2, so that's also been another unlock for us to move to stage 2. And then stage 2, I think, is where we get the real impact and also the real revenue coming in, which is most AI, where AI is going to touch the most people's lives, and where AI is going to have kind of the biggest short-term or near-term business impact is in large incumbent players, places where there's already a lot of workflows. There's already like inertia and gravity, and where attention is and where work is happening. Like those things are really, like, those things change slowly for most things. And so I firmly believe that some of the most the things that are going to, like, in aggregate help the most people in over the next few years, driven by AI, those are going to come from large organizations. Many of them, though, right now are struggling. They're struggling to build AI that is like trustworthy and that's like not just generic. And that's not because the models aren't smart enough. It's not because they don't have great engineering teams. It's because building really good AI just looks different than building traditional software. It's a different flow. We need to get different people involved. It's a different kind of learning and optimization process. And so we're phase 2 for us is really kind of going up market and going to those folks, and kind of helping them build AI that is AI products that are going to be more interesting, hopefully, and creative than a lot of the boring stuff out there today.
I wonder, so like you mentioned a bunch of times on like, the model won't be the differentiation, or like the model is good enough. Like, do you feel like the next generation, like companies are like, is there still gonna be like different, like, maybe I don't know if it's like small language model, but like from the model side, is there going to be more like innovation, and like is there going to be more companies started like differentiating their product like by building like a better model? Or do you feel like the next generation of like AI apps are going to be, or like not apps but like AI companies are going to be just in the application layer?
I think calling it So I believe, I'm sure there's going to be continued to be specialized models. They'll continue to build different, frontier models or different, smaller language models that are good at specific subsets of tasks and things like that. But by and large, where I think innovation is happening and where I think the value is going to be created, it's not burning $100 million on training a new LLM. That's not what's going to suddenly give us all these life-changing AI applications that we don't have yet. And I think the thing that a lot of people have thought over the last couple of years is like, all right, maybe training a whole new frontier LLM isn't what we should do, but maybe the sexy thing is RL. Maybe if we just do some post training on one of those models and kind of change the weights a little bit, then we can say we trained our own model and now we have IP and now this is our own foundation model that only we have. I think like a lot of what I hear, the narratives I hear in the industry around training LLMs and around RL is that it's less about like what does the model do sometimes, and it's more about how do we claim that it's uniquely ours? How do we claim that we have AI IP that nobody else has? And I think if you look at the actual outcomes from those RL efforts and from those specialized LLM training, like that isn't the big guys and like somebody else being like, I want to create a specialized model. None of those have been just ways to burn a lot of money. What are the success stories where suddenly all of these new applications that we've never been able to do are now possible because of RL? RL takes tons of data investment. You have to build these massive data sets, and it takes a lot of expertise with how do you actually do the training and set up all the infrastructure. And like, what's been the result of that? In research, again and again, and when people do these also in industry head to head, like actually simple prompt optimization beats RL. It's like takes 1/100th the cost and 1/100th the time and 1/100th the data. And so I think like where the IP and the innovation is, it's not in who can create a set of weights in a model and say like this is the new set of weights that we're having. It's who has the right signals to be continuously outputting, to be kind of continuously teaching their AI how to better serve their users. Whether you're doing that teaching through RL or whether you train a foundation model or whether you're just doing that teaching through, good old fashioned prompt optimization, that isn't like how you do the teaching to me isn't as important. Choose the best method that's going to like lead to the best results. What's important is how are you gathering the signals that do the teaching? How are you that's what companies can build that's going to make their AI app truly unique and different. And that's the data that companies can gather that is going to be IP that nobody else can recreate. It's not some set of weights. It's the things that produce those weights. It's the signals from their users, from their internal subject matter experts, from their existing data. It's the signals that are able to produce the weights either through RL or through prompt optimization, and that can do that again and again every single day. Every time you learn more, they can update the weights, they can update the teaching. I think that's the layer at which really, really exciting and interesting new AI things happen, not on the downstream of how do you actually operationalize that.
Love that. Well, Moritz, thank you so much for the amazing masterclass on giving the model more context and training the model better. But okay, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks, Grace. So fun way to start my day.
Amazing. Okay, let me quickly add